Hey everyone, we're West Coast Muscle Saws. Got a few questions here I'd like to go over. First, I want to show you my right chainsaw here. This is a pretty rare model. That's a model C70, it's made in '61. Runs like a dream. They were very heavy for their time, but just look how beautiful that saw is. And it just runs beautiful. It's got a really unique feature here. It's got a little lever here for changing the timing. These were so hard to start, they would kick so bad. And so they put this timing lever on there so you could retard it a little bit, make it start, and then fire it up and run it, and slide it back and forth. Anyway, it's a great saw. See if you can get some questions here. Had a lot of guys asking about the chisel grinders. You know, the SDM4, I think we talked about this last time. SDM4 is no longer made. It was a Sylvie grinder, just the holy grail for chain grinder. Symington's been around for a long time, and they originally were the swing arm. A lot of disappointed people in that, and I was one of them. It just was not accurate. A guy named Kelly, he purchased the rights for the Symington. He redesigned that, and I am very happy with that grinder. That grinder does a beautiful job. If you're wanting to get set up one of those, with one of those, you can give me a shout. We do ship them all over the place. You know, prices are up on everything, and things are hard to come by right now. I would guess you'd spend around $1,500, $1,600, maybe a little more for some shipping on that. So anyway, if you're interested in those, give me a shout. Mark asked about the ripping chain. And the ripping chain, you know, there's two versions. There is just a regular ripping chain, nothing fancy. And it is filed at like 10 or 15 degrees. And it does cut good, but it's not real even. It kind of gives it a wave. If you got a mill, if you've got a planer to plane those, you'd be okay. If you're wanting a real beautiful cut, use a ripping chain, and it's available. It's a little more money, and it does a slower cut, but will do a better job. Grandberg probably makes one of the best ones, and then Ripco makes another one that's usable. I had a question about the purge, little bulb on all your chainsaws. That's not a primer, that is a purge. Its main function is to get the fuel from the tank through the carburetor circuitry and then back into the fuel tank. It's really handy on hot summer days when the temperature is up high. And you shut your saw off, of course the gas wants to turn to vapor, and then of course you've got issues. So what you want to do is before you restart, you pump that, and that cools the fuel down, turns it back from a vapor to liquid, and makes it easier to start. Just a minute, I got some questions here. Okay, I got Steel's came out with a new file. You know, any of the steel files are of good quality. They're very, very good quality. They're not like what you get at the hardware. And they're just really great and very handy for when you're out cutting in the woods and you don't have your grinder by or anything like that. It works good. Oh, Bill, how you doing there in Pittsburgh? Love to hear from you. And let's see here. Square files, there's only two good ones. There is the, usually get them on the West Coast here. I'll give you the number for the shop that sells them. There's a 3/4 and a flat chisel bit. Most guys on the West Coast like the 3/4 file. It's kind of user friendly. And of course, let me show you something here. This is a round chain, doesn't mean a whole lot, but this was a square tooth and we were using a square file. You don't file into the tooth. You turn that around and you file into it, and the reason is these have a very thin chrome plating on the tooth. That's what makes it hard. If you file from this angle, or from here, and file, you actually peel up that chrome, and the chain will dull quicker. When you're filing into it, you're taking that burr and leaving it on the inside and making that chain cut faster, and it lasts a lot longer. But that's the idea behind the chisel file, is how you file them. You don't do like we do with the round files and go in. On your round files, it doesn't really matter. You could file it from the other side. You're not going to gain a whole lot, but these guys that professionally cut, they want to use that sharpest chain they can, and that's why they do what they do on that. Yeah. You gotta have that old 2-cycle flowing through your veins to really work on these chainsaws. I agree with you there. Thank you. Just a minute. I'm going to see if we've got some more questions here. Hang on. Okay, we talked about the purge bulb. Very critical, especially on like your top panel saws, on your when you're up in the buckets up there, the little echo and everything, and especially with these hybrid engines, I call them. Those are the more advanced fuel efficiency engines. They do run a little hotter, so you definitely want to use that purge bulb. It's not a primer. A lot of guys think that's a primer, and it shoots gas into the venturi right into the engine. It does not. If it does, there's something wrong. All it does is circulate that fuel through the carburetor, the circuitry of the carburetor, and cools it down. Actually, it cools down the carburetor and will make a hot start easier. That's the idea behind it. And I got a question on the how to split the cases.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I will here in a minute.
I don't understand. I will in a minute.
Okay.
But I could search the web for it.
No, you don't have to. Okay, you love that. Back to the crankcases. Those crankcases, done properly, have to be heated. They've got to be heated to get the bearings out. That bearing, when it was put into the factory, the bearing was cooled, the crankcases were warmed up, it was slid in there, and then it cinched around that bearing, and you can drive them out, but you will absolutely ruin that crankcase. A couple more questions. I'm not doing any saw work, you know. I retired from that, but I do have a wealth of knowledge on how to do it. And so guys ask me all the time to fix their saws. Can't say I won't never do it. I still have that 2-cycle in my veins. I do like working on saws. I worked on Bill's. He's there. He's on there with us. I worked on his saws. He's got some great running saws. They were fun to do. But I'm not doing it right now. I've got a few other hobbies going. One of them I'm going to do like what we're doing here. I'm going to help out some guys in their shops. If you got any questions, if you're guys working in the shops and you want to get your service department running a lot smoother for the handheld products, I'm going to be able to help you on that, show you how to do that, and we'll talk about that in one of our videos here. I want to show you a couple things. I had another question on guys looking for mechanics that actually work on their saws to hot rod them. I'll give you some pointers on what you should look for. You want somebody that really knows what they're doing. A few questions you should ask, of course, is if they're decking the cylinders rather than just removing the gasket and put sealer in there. I do realize that some of the times on some of the saws, the only way you can really deck those properly is to just alleviate the gasket. Well, we don't like to do that if we don't have to, and so then the machining comes, and then that's when you get the guys that really know what they're doing. They build mandrels, and I've got a whole box of them here. This is what my machinist built. I didn't build them. I had a very good machinist, Harry Cook, the best of the best. This box is full of mandrels, different sizes. You got to have a tight fit when you slide those into the cylinder. And the way it works, let me find something here. Hang on a second, guys. This is my training cylinder, of course. And let me grab a chair here so I can show you what we're going to do here. Split it into a Husqvarna cylinder. Now, another thing we need to go over is your saw worth putting the work into it to modify it. A lot of guys will modify any cylinder. You want to make sure you have closed porting. And the way you tell is to take the cylinder off, and if you can see, of course I've split this, but if you can see the transfer ports, it's more expensive to build a cylinder with transfer ports than it is to have what they call open porting. They both run, but if you want a high performance one, you're going to have closed porting. It's just going to increase that power. You can flip the cylinder over and you can see the passage here, the way it works. Here's the other, right there. Got it split apart, and you can see rotation here as the piston goes down. Skirts, we're filling up the crankcase, pushing the mixture into the transfer port. You can see there, shoving it on top of the piston, and then we're going to compress it. And that's what we do when we deck the cylinder. We're increasing this ratio here. When we compress it, we're compressing it more, getting a bigger bang. And the way they do that, or the way we do it, is the cylinder comes off, and then I send it to Harry, and he builds the mandrels, slides up in the cylinder, got his lathe here, grip down on it, got the deadhead over here, and then he turns that, and he uses his lathe tool, and he reaches in there, and it's very delicate work. It's you got to really be good at this. And he reaches in there, and he shaves that. He's got his measuring calipers down below, so exactly what he takes off. There's no magic number. Everybody, there's so many ideas on this porting, and everybody got their hidden numbers, what you want to do, and everything. You take too much off, it's pretty basic. You take too much off, and you're going to hit the top of the cylinder. Rule of thumb, what most of the guys do that do this is you slide the gasket out, original OEM gasket, or get you an OEM gasket, and you measure it. And you shave that amount, and maybe a little more. When I was started doing this, I took many different cylinders of the same saw, and I would experiment with them to get my best bang for my buck. And so you measure that, and you, of course, measure the cylinders. There is a little variation, not much, from factory bills. And then you have your machinist do that. And then what you want to do is and you really need and they're expensive, but if you're going to do this much, it's worth getting. You need the special tools for porting, and you can get those from, there's a real good porting manufacturer out there on the internet, CNC I think it's called. What you're going to do next, of course, is to enlarge the exhaust window, and then you're going to do also on the intake side of the cylinder. On the intake side, you're going to enlarge it too. How much? Well, then again, it's back to experimenting till you get your pattern. You'll play with 2 or 3 cylinders till you get and run it and get the performance you want. And of course, put a exhaust on there on your muffler to where it really performs well. You're going to change your timing, and the easiest way to do that with a lot of these saws is to take the keyway and shave the keyway. How much? Well, then again, here we go. You play with the keyway, you probably have 3 or 4 keyways, and you'll just shave maybe a minute amount off, and then you'll rotate that in the direction and a little Loctite on there to seal it. And play with that until you get exactly what you want. It's not as complicated as a lot of people want you to think it is. I mean, you could do this. I have some of my timber cutters do it. The most important and critical part is getting that decking square. You want that cylinder to sit there square. You can't take I've seen some guys take putty knives and different things and try to carve on the aluminum, drop the cylinder down, and don't do that backyard stuff. That's not the way to go. See if we got some questions here. Hang on, guys. Hey Mitch, how you doing there in Maine? Uh, Chad, I just don't do the exhaust anymore. If you got some guys that basically how you build those is you got to have some good gas welding, oxyacetylene welding abilities to weld those are not difficult to do. Then again, it's back to experimenting. I tell guys that are learning this, get you good oxyacetylene set, 2 3 old exhausts that are no good, and some tubing and custom build, and you can do all kinds of things. But just make it look nice and clean. I don't like, and you also got to use a nice welding rod. A lot of nickel in it. You don't want any slag inside that exhaust, so you polish it. Guys didn't realize this, and I was seeing some of their exhausts. They were welding them, and they would get globs of metal. A piston going up and down on that exhaust, you will get some blowback into there if you're not, and if you don't have, if the slag is there, and if it were to get into the cylinder, of course, there goes your saw. Then again, question about the exhaust. I'm not building them right now. I don't know if I will in the future or not. That was something I did a lot of. Mario, got the McCullough Super Pro 125 working, except sometimes it misses when I give it the gas. I'll get on the phone with you, Mario, on that one there. He's got a really nice 101B Racing McCullough engine in that 125, and it's a beast. And he's a great guy. He's got it going, and that's excellent. I'll be talking to you on that, Mario. And let me see if we got any more questions here. Couple more questions on chainsaw builds. Like I say, a couple more questions. Guys building some big saws. You got to realize on these big saws, and a lot of guys will want to bypass the coil on them. Those big saws, 880s, the big 3120s, anything 394, 395 or bigger. I talked to the guys at the factory a lot about these builds, and that massive piston turning at more than 12,000 RPM, it will scatter if you keep doing it. And so a lot of guys want their saws to turn at 14, 16,000, stuff like that. You just can't do it legitimately and expect it to last any time. Unless you go out and spend some major bucks and have custom built pistons and stuff. And it's not good for everyday use, and so just be aware of that. Well, guys, I'm going to wind it down for this evening. Good to see all you guys. Chad, great to see you. VR, you're out there. I see that. Justin, good job. And Martin, good to hear from you. And like I said, you can email the chainsaw guy, sawking@hotmail.com. If you got some technical questions. I also go back to the 70s on chainsaws. I worked on them a lot back in the 70s. McCulloughs were very popular. The Home Lights, the early Steels, old 51s, old 50s, old 45s, and I got a lot of knowledge on that. If you have questions, if you're restoring one, some of the classic muscle saws, we'll try to go over some of that live. It's kind of fun to do it. And clear up to the saws that are computer, got the computer chip on and everything. Derek, good to hear from you. Hi, Shane. How's it going? Well, guys, like I said, keep the questions coming. We got had some technical issues. I was going to do this yesterday, but it doesn't work out all the time. But anyway, we're up and running again. So if you got any questions, and we'll try to help you out there. Have a great evening. We'll talk to you guys later.